Before we begin with this video, I would like to say this announcement is to thank you so much for getting this channel, my backup channel, that you're watching this video now up to 500 subs. I want to thank you so much for the support that you have given this channel over the last 2 years, I guess since 2020 when I started uploading once a week. But then I started being more consistent with uploads on this channel. If you are new to this channel and you happen to be from my main channel, the Lion Queen, feel free to leave a like and subscribe on this video. Subscribe to this channel. Also, to those who are sub to this channel are not sub to the Lion Queen channel, which is my main account, feel free to leave that as like and even subscribe to that channel as well. Now, with that being said, let's continue to support this backup channel, get the goal up to 1K subs. And anyways, let us begin. Being the kid in the early 2000s, I've grown up with shows from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even the early 2000s. I was born in 1997, and I had a great childhood. I lived in Tallahassee in Florida, and still living there as of today. I have happened to be a 22-year-old woman who to watch movies whenever I have nothing else to do. On top of that, I happen to be a big fan of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I've grown up watching with them as a kid, and so did my parents and my older brother, who is now 24, born in 1995. The Hanna-Barbera cartoons, everyone in my family, including myself, have grown up with the shows they have. The shows we all watched are the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Yogi Bear, etc. But one of our most favorite shows is Scooby-Doo. My family and I have watched most of the Scooby-Doo shows and movies since the 70s to around 2010. The reason for that being is the fact that Scooby-Doo shows and movies these days to 2019, it's just not the same as we all remembered. The best Scooby-Doo movie that I would watch as many times as I like is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. The movie is about Scooby and the gang all going to Moonscar Island, that is in Louisiana, to be filled with zombies and other fucked up things happens while the gang stayed there. I happened to see an early version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island back in 2017. It all happened in April, a month after my 20th birthday. It was April 8th, and when I was driving in my car, driving around on the street in Tallahassee, Florida, I was looking for an apartment for my brother, who will be renting for when he was going to go to college. He will be with other college students, and everything was included in what comes in with the rent and all that. As I was driving, I spotted a coffee shop, so I decided to stop and grab a cup of coffee. As I got out of my car and walked inside the coffee shop, I grabbed a cup of coffee and a donut. And as I was heading back to my car, I looked to my left to see a man, around my age, who parked his car. He had noticed me as I noticed him. He looked at me with a smile on his face as he spoke. "Well, isn't today a nice day?" he asked me. "Yeah," I replied nervously. "How are you today?" I asked him. "Really good. What brings you here today?" the man asked me. "My name is Otis, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida." "I see. What brings you here, Otis?" I asked Otis, as he locked his car and then walked over to me. "To visit family I have down here. I have stopped here to get a coffee," Otis replied. Soon we got into a conversation about things we liked. When I mentioned that I liked Scooby-Doo, we talked more into details about what Scooby-Doo movies were my favorite. I mentioned Zombie Island to him, and he looked at me with a reply that it was his favorite movie too. I tried to get it on DVD from Amazon, but when I got it on DVD, it didn't work, and I used to have movies on VHS until when my VCR broke down. I said to Otis, and then I mentioned I was looking for the movie anywhere, but I couldn't find it anywhere. "Have you tried the iTunes store on your phone?" Otis asked me. "Yes, I do. I have an iPhone 7 at this time, and I don't use iTunes that much," I replied, "but I'm willing to try." Otis gave me an iTunes card which had $25 on it. iTunes has a lot of good stuff. Google Play isn't my favorite for some reason. Otis replied as I opened the car. Otis then looked at me with a smile. Search up Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island when you get home, he said to me. You should be able to find it there. When I got back to my house, my brother David greeted me as he gave me a hug as I returned the hug for him. Found any luck? David asked me. Yeah, there's an apartment that is available for rent for college students, I replied to my brother. I booked you to see the landlord for next week, and the time is at 10 a.m. All right, thanks, Belle, David replied to me as I had my coffee and went to my bedroom. It was around 5 p.m. when my parents were working at this time, so I went to my bedroom and sat down on my bed. I went to the iTunes store on my phone and redeemed my iTunes store credit, which I had $30 in total since I saved up $5 from last time I used the iTunes store. I searched up Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and waited for a minute for the search results. When I found the Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island movie on the list, I noticed that below the I was looking for, there was a copy of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I took a look at it, and it said, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, 1997. Wait, what? There must be some mix-up or something rather weird. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island came out in 1998, not 1997. I had to do some research on my laptop about the movie. When I researched the movie on Google, I went to Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island Wikipedia page for some more info on the movie. I then found out that the movie was being made around 1997 and early 1998, and then it was released on September 22nd, 1998. I decided that I would look at the reviews of this 1997 version of the movie. One of the reviews said rated out of 1 out of 5 stars. One of the comments said, very dark and too violent for kids. Another comment said, why did this version of the movie being more scarier than the original version of it? I ignored the comments, thinking that there would just be more comments, but there were only 2 comments, but that was just it. I downloaded the movie and plugged in my earbuds on my phone. As I looked up at the screen, to my surprise, the cover was a bit different. The cover had Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, Daphne, and Fred. It also had Lena, Simone, and Jock at the cover with some zombies in the background. After the movie was finished downloading, I played the movie, and it started with the intro of the movie. The intro starts off with the gang solving a mystery, as they usually do in every Scooby-Doo movie, with some theme song playing in the background. When the gang solve their mystery as usual, the screen then transitions to Daphne, sitting in front of a talk show host. And that was when we solved the mystery of the moat monster, one of our most frightening mysteries. Everyone clapped for Dorothy as the talk show host cringed at the story. No wonder why you became a reporter, the talk show host said to Daphne. That moat monster almost sliced you up into a pizza, and we wouldn't have Coast to Coast with Daphne Blake, going on 2nd season I might add. I never miss it. Thanks, Chris, Daphne said, smiled at the talk show host. Why I turned out this career was the fact that the monsters we solved, they always turned out to be bad guys wearing a costume. Got a little boring, eh? Chris asked. Daphne giggled. No kidding. In fact, that's why the gang went their separate ways, Daphne replied, except for Fred and me. With that being said, the scene then shows Shaggy and Scooby watching Daphne on TV with her own show. They both sighed in sadness as that the gang went their own ways. So Shaggy and Scooby continued their job until they walked into a room full of food. The next scene then shows Velma working at a bookstore when she sighed and looked at the TV, showing Daphne on her show. The phone rang, so she answered it. Hello? Velma answered the phone. She then noticed that Fred was on the phone. Freddy? Jinkies! Sounds great! Count me in! Velma cheered. When the next scene shows Scooby and Shaggy, whom they both got fired from eating all the food in the airport office area, Shaggy answered the phone when it rang. Hello? Shaggy answered the phone. Fred? Zoinks! Busy? Nah, Scoob and I were just taking some time off. Rah! Scooby replied. The scene then transitions to Daphne sitting in front of her house. Fred pulled up to her house. Sorry I'm late, Daph. The traffic was brutal, Fred said, as he stepped out of the van. was starting to like this 1997 version of the movie. It was just like the original version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, from what I remembered. When Fred opened the door of the back of the van, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby shouted, "Surprise!" It was Daphne's birthday, so the gang hugged her. "Thanks, you guys." Daphne smiled. "Gosh, it's great to see you all." "I hope you don't mind, but I asked the gang to come along," Fred replied, as Daphne hugged her best friend. "Thanks, Fred. This is the best birthday ever," Daphne replied as Scooby licked their faces. "It's great to see you too, Scoob," Fred chuckled. Velma then showed Scooby and Shaggy a box of Scooby snacks that the two had a couple of snacks, but they were a bit stale. "We're going to New Orleans to solve a mystery in Louisiana," Fred announced. "And New Orleans have some of the best food in the world," Daphne added. "And the best ghosts," Velma also added. "I hope so," Daphne replied. "Well, let's get going." "Hold it. There's just one more thing." Fred then revealed the Mystery Machine logo by pulling off Daphne's TV show banner off of it. "Yes!" Velma cheered. "Mystery Inc. is back in business." With that being said, the gang all went out to solve real ghosts and monsters, but no luck as you can tell. All the ghosts and monsters they found were in people in costumes. Daphne was bummed out by this. She and the gang were still in Louisiana, Orleans. "Well, I've got a show to do. I need a real-life ghost," Daphne said. "I want a house that is really haunted." "There is," a voice of a woman said. "I work there as a maid, and the house is really haunted in Moonscar Island." "Jinkies!" Velma was amazed and surprised. "My name is Lena Dupree," Lena said. "Introduce herself." "Fred Jones," Fred replied. "And this is Velma Dinkley and Daphne Blake." "Moonscar Island?" Daphne asked in confusion. "Where's that?" "It's in the bayou not far from here. A pirate named Moonscar Island died on the island, but his spirit is said to haunt the place," Lena replied. "Nah, that's just fake." Fred brushed it off. "It's pretty much just some guy in a pirate costume just to scare the others off." "The ghost is real, if you're too scared to go," Lena replied. "If you want to check it out, I'll be leaving as soon as I'm finished shopping." The way Lena said it, those lines, sounded like she was flirting with Fred. "Lena is kinda cute," Fred said about Lena. This made Daphne not happy. "Fred!" Daphne scowled. "Jinkies!" Velma exclaimed with shock. "In Moonscar Island, there have been some people going missing on the island. No bodies were found in decades." "That sounds creepy," Daphne replied. "We better go before Lena takes off." The scene that cuts to Shaggy and Scooby, eating a huge sandwich as they always did. "Come on, you guys. We found a haunted house to check it out," Fred said to Shaggy and Scooby. As the scene fades to the gang following Lena in her pickup truck to drive to a ferry boat, the gang drove into the ferry. A man who was driving the ferry was named Jacques and was telling the gang stories of pirates and people going missing. "Moonscar Morgan is the famous pirate of the bayou," Jacques said, as he talks about more stuff, but it was confusing about how it happened on the island since he almost talked too fast. "There's the island," Jacques said, as he lets Lena and the gang out of the ferry with their vehicles. "Hang on, the roads are a little bit bumpy," Lena warned. The gang followed Lena through the roads of Moonscar Island. It was very creepy. The swamp all looked around like if it was from the 1930s, but 10 times more creepy than it already is. In the distance, as the movie shows, the house was coming into view. "Wow, that's one haunted house," Daphne said, as Fred, holding the video camera, captured every moment. When he sees a ton of cats around the property, Scooby went nuts by jumping out of the Mystery Machine and caused a riot. "Scooby, leave him alone," Daphne called out to Scooby. "Scooby, stop!" Shaggy called as he grabbed Scooby by the collar as soon as he bumped into another woman who walked out of the house. "Who brought this dog?" a woman with short blonde hair asked. She pointed at Scooby. The gang apologized to the owner of the house about Scooby. Then they explained about what they were doing here. So Lena explained to the owner of the house more stuff, and the woman introduced herself as Simone. "Your house is beautiful," Daphne said. "How old is it?" Fred asked. It's been in the family for many years, Simone explained. It was a pepper plantation. Some of the hottest peppers grows on this island. So, Simone, is your house really... Velma began. Haunted? Simone asked Velma, interrupting her mid-sentence. Yes, it is an old house with restless spirits. You can look around if you like. I would be most flattered if you were going to do taping. So with that being said, Lena explained that her new gardener named Bao would fix the damage. So the gang would have to look around the house while Scooby and Shaggy snuck into the kitchen to eat as usual. So far, this version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island was interesting. It was like the original movie, but since this was the beta version, I was getting more interested by what was going to happen next. The next scene shows Shaggy and Scooby eating the food as they always do when they see food. The gang were in the lounge area where Shaggy and Scooby screamed. They screamed because of the fact that the peppers were so hot. A few minutes later, Shaggy and Scooby screamed again. Peppers again? Daphne asked. Riding, Scooby replied. Ghost riding. Why, this place is haunted. Shaggy explained, as the words writing was get out in the original version of the movie, but in this beta version was more disturbing. I paused the movie to take a look at the writing more closely, and it said, get out or you'll die. Now that was a bit disturbing for a kid's movie, but since this was the beta, I brushed it off. Daphne explained about the spirits in the mansion being haunted, so when a cold wind blew through Daphne, she shook her head. Cut! Who the hell opened the window? Daphne's did sounded like she had a freak out, and mild swearing in a kids show was not so bad, but there was usually never any swearing in Scooby-Doo. I could see the writing. They also said something else was under the writing. The second writing said, they're coming for you. Now that was even more disturbing than the first message, but I knew this house was haunted, so stuff like this was to be expected. Isn't this stuff great or what? Daphne was getting excited at this point. She is into freaky and scary stuff, as I was into that stuff too. The hauntings might only just be the beginning, but when the sun sets, the ghosts get even more creepy. Simone explained as Fred then films Velma floating in the air. How was that even possible? Velma was getting weirded out by this, so Shaggy and Scooby pull Velma down to the ground, and the next scene fades to the gang. Looking through the camera footage that they saw earlier, they had a better look of what was making the writing appear. Fred zoomed in on the footage to see a ghost of Morgan Moonscar. Simone shows a book of the gang of what was happening. We don't get scared that easy, Daphne said with excitement in her tone. We see the next transitions of the scene goes to Scooby and Shaggy having a picnic outside near the garden. Then Scooby sees the cats and then goes on a chase again. The scene goes on until a grouchy fisherman looked at Scooby. He was being a riot. You mutt! Get him, Mojo! The fisherman said. Now, Mojo is the fisherman's hunting warthog in the original version of the movie. But in this 1997 version, Mojo wasn't a warthog, but he was a tiger. He chases Scooby as he ran past Shaggy. He turned around to see the tiger running very fast. Zoinks! Shaggy shrieked when he saw the tiger. So Shaggy and Scooby both ran as fast as they could to ditch the tiger. As soon as they fell into a deep hole, Shaggy and Scooby to look up to see the tiger roaring at them. As the tiger backed away, Shaggy and Scooby then looked at the sky to see a zombie pirate, which is Morgan Moonstar, groaning and moaning. Shaggy and Scooby quickly jumped out of the hole and then ran away screaming until they bumped into the gardener. The gardener was pissed off. What the hell are you doing here? Ruining my flower beds? Bao asked in anger, as Velma along with Daphne, Lena, and Simone and Fred appeared from the bushes. What's going on, guys? Velma asked. We can hear you screaming all the way from the house. We saw a pirate Moonscar, and he looked like a zombie, Shaggy explained. Oh dear, Simone said. Shaggy and Scooby then took the gang to see where they found the zombie. When they got to the hole and looked inside. Are you sure you saw a zombie? Fred asked. We know a zombie when we see one, Shaggy replied. Velma then asked the gardener some questions, but he ignored them and walked away. He is kinda cute, Daphne said. Well, maybe we should get going, Fred suggested. Daphne replied that she didn't want to leave just yet. Simone then offers the gang to spend the night in the haunted house, to which the gang agreed with that. Lena then said that she would get dinner started. The scene then fades to Lena showing the gang their rooms. Shaggy asks when dinner will be ready at. I never really knew anyone who would love to eat as much as you guys, Lena chuckled. When Lena showed Fred his room, she flirted with him, which she wasn't really happy with Lena flirting with her best friend. Thanks. Daphne turned around and walked in her room to see that Lena was gone. Now Daphne's eyes were filled with tears, as I could tell Daphne was going to cry. I had a feeling that Lena was trying to steal Fred away from her, and she had a crush on Fred at the same time Daphne does. The next scene then shows the gang in the dining room. When Simone suggests Scooby to eat somewhere else, Lena made a suggestion for Shaggy and Scooby to eat inside the mystery machine, to which they agree, and Shaggy and Scooby were seen inside eating in the mystery machine when Scooby was getting pissed off at the cats being a nuisance. Shaggy drove the van down to a swamp to find a quiet area to eat, and as they ate a hot pepper, the scene goes normal where Shaggy and Scooby ran into the swamp to drink some water, where a green light is shown and points deep in the water. Shaggy and Scooby then look to see a zombie crawling out. They begin to see more zombies around the place. Shaggy and Scooby were able to drive down a few miles when the mystery machine got stuck. I could see the zombies were looking very decayed. They had some blood on their clothes and even flesh was being shown. This was a bit more disturbing, so I ignored it. The next scene shows back at the haunted house, where the gang hears Shaggy and Scooby screaming. The hauntings are just the beginning, Simone said to the gang at the dining table. We better go find Shaggy and Scooby, Velma said. Fred agreed and said to Simone and Lena that they would be going to find Shaggy and Scooby. Simone agrees that the next scene transitions to Fred, Daphne, and Velma walking around the swamp. They soon ran into Bo, who said that he heard screaming, and he also mentioned that he ran into Shaggy and Scooby again, screaming about zombies. I'll go with Bo, Velma said, as she went with Bo, and Daphne and Fred both went together. The scene was going very well and normal. When Daphne opened the van doors and screamed, the scream sounded like Daphne was being stabbed by a killer. What the hell is this? Daphne shrieked. She could see then she saw leftover dinner. I thought there was going to be a dead body or something, but luckily there wasn't. Fred climbed into the van to have a closer look. Well, I guess the boys like your girlfriend's dinner, huh? She's not my girlfriend, Daph, Fred replied. I just said I enjoyed her cooking. Daphne then felt someone grabbing her by the shoulder, and as she grabbed the arm of someone and threw it over her shoulder. Daphne, are you? Fred was then cut off by Daphne's ranting. I can handle myself, thank you, Daphne replied. Fred got a closer look to see a zombie pirate. I think it's the gardener, Fred said. Well, just see about that, Daphne said, as she tried to pull the head off of the body. Shaggy and Scooby then show up and freaked out at the pirate zombie. It's pretty much a mask. It's the cheesiest mask I've ever seen, Fred said, but Daphne couldn't pull the head off of the zombie. But it feels real, Daphne said. Fred then tried to give it a try, and with a few pulls, the head popped out, revealing some blood squirting out of the neck. No, that was very disturbing. Like, why have something like that with blood in a kid's movie? It's real! Fred was surprised. The headless body then got up and picked up the head and placed it back on. Daphne and Fred were surprised to see more zombies appearing in the swamp. Shaggy and Scooby ran away again. Then all of a sudden, Daphne and Fred heard a blood-curdling scream. The scream was from Lena, and it sounded like if she was being gutted alive. It's Lena! We left her and Simone unprotected, Fred said, as he and Daphne began to run, until Fred dropped the video camera into the quicksand and disappeared. Fred and Daphne began to run away from the zombies. The most disturbing thing is that the zombies were decayed and covered in blood. Now I was starting to get a bit nervous about this freaky beta version of the movie. I mean, I know there would be blood in a kid's movie. I don't understand why. I continued to watch the movie as the Terror Time Again song plays in the background as the two duos were running away from the zombies. Fred and Daphne met up with Bo and Velma again and explained about what was going on. when they were all floating in the air. They were panicking on what was going on, and then another scene fades to Shaggy and Scooby playing with the dolls that looked like their friends. "I wonder who made these dolls?" Shaggy asked, as he and Scooby were soon chased off by bats. They soon ran into more zombies. The next scene then shows Daphne and Fred along with Bao and Velma inside Simone's house. They were looking for Lena and Simone when Fred fell through a staircase. Lena explained about the zombies spotted her and Simone, and she also said that the zombies dragged her away. Lena was in Fred's arms at this point. "Don't worry, we're going to find her and it's going to be okay." Fred comforted Lena as he, along with Velma, Bao, and Daphne, walked down the tunnel. By the time they reached to a voodoo ritual room, it was a trap. "It is too late for you now," Simone chuckled evilly. He and Lena used the voodoo dolls and tired Fred and Daphne and Bao and Velma up. "I'm sorry, Fred. I really do like you," Lena smirked evilly. "Just what are you planning to do to us?" Fred asked. "It is very simple," Simone explained. She then turned to face a moon dial. "Soon, at the midnight point reaches its moon dial, then the ceremony will begin," Simone replied. "You won't get away with this," Daphne ranted, as she struggled to get free as Simone and Lena both chuckled. "We've been getting away with it for 200 years. Simone laughed as she and Lena started to transform into their werecat forms, which was only part of the transformation. "At least Shaggy and Scooby are still free." "Maybe," Fred whispered. "We heard that, Fred," Lena scoffed. "Those two pain in the asses. We didn't even give a crap about making voodoo dolls out of them," Lena hissed. "Then what the hell are you planning to do to us?" Fred asked. "Every harvest moon, we drain the life out of those who are on the island, so we could be immortal," Simone explained. "This is more haunted stuff than I ever imagined." Daphne was more horrified along with her friends. The next scene then shows Shaggy and Scooby at the docks to the ferry. They see Jacques walking towards them. "I'm happy to see you all," Jacques chuckled as he transformed into a werecat. Shaggy and Scooby then began to run at this point as the man werecat chased Shaggy and Scooby in the swamp. The next scene then shows Simone along with Lena, Fred, Bo, Daphne, and Velma in the voodoo ritual room. "Morgan Moonscar caused all this." Simone started to explain the gang about the history of how Morgan Moonscar caused Simone and Lena to be who they are as of now. The flashback was taking place around the 1700s. Simone explained that she and Lena were settlers on the island, claiming to be their home. But when Morgan Moonscar and the pirates showed up on the island, they trashed the settlers' stuff and chased most of them into the bayou. But in this flashback was more scarier than the original version of the movie. We see some of the settlers were being held back by some of the pirates who had held them back in the camping spot. Lena and Simone were hiding in the tree to see the settlers were in the bayou. Crocodiles were eating the settlers inside the water, and the swamp became a bloodbath, and screams and cries can be heard. Lena and Simone gasped when they saw the settlers being eaten alive. Another thing Simone mentioned was much more disturbing. Simone explained that some of the settlers were being violated and tortured in many ways. So yeah, not going to be saying about what the pirates did to them. So you can imagine what has been done to them. "We put a curse on the pirates to destroy them as they destroyed our island. Our wish was granted," Simone explained that she and Lena became cat creatures and killed all of the pirates. But after that, the god cat's power cursed them as well. "Over the years, the people still come toward our island," Lena explained. Another flashback appears with spice traders that started a pepper plantation house. When the next harvest moon showed up, Lena and Simone explained that they lure people into the island. "Just like how you lured us," Fred explained. "And those zombies are the dead souls you drained. They were trying to warn us," Daphne said, as another cat shriek was heard. "Sounds like Jacques has found your frightened friends," Lena growled. "The old man wanted to be immortal, so we gave it to him," Simone replied, as the next scene shows Shaggy and Scooby running until the cat creature appeared right in front of them. "Going somewhere?" Jacques picked up Shaggy and Scooby and looked at them. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" Jacques then roared at Shaggy and Scooby as the zombies walked towards the cat creature and started to tackle him. "No, Scoob! This is our chance! Shaggy and Scooby ran away as they can. Soon they ran inside the cave and knocked Simone and Lena away from their tied-up friends. Look out! Velma said, as Shaggy and Scooby looked to see Simone and Lena getting up and growling. I had enough of that dog, Simone growled. I was surprised that Simone nearly said the F word. Simone and Lena then fully transformed into cat creatures and started to chase after Shaggy and Scooby. Velma grabbed one of the voodoo dolls and freed herself, then she freed her friends from being tied up. The zombies then found a way inside the cave and attacked the cat creatures. Shaggy, Scooby, the zombies are the good guys, Daphne said, as Shaggy and Scooby were then chased by Jacques, who grabbed them, and Scooby, who saw one of the peppers and sprayed juices on Jacques' eyes, who groaned in pain. Lena and Simone then grabbed Shaggy and Scooby and began to drain their lives. And as they were pulled away all of a sudden by Daphne and Velma, who made voodoo dolls out of them, Simone ran up to Daphne and looked at her angry eyes. You know what, Daphne Blake? I'll kill you, just like what every creature does in a horror movie. Simone then raised her right paw and gave Daphne's face a good swipe across the face. Daphne groaned in pain as she looked at Simone with scratch marks on her face. Her left eye had a cut and her eye was bleeding. Fred along with Bao made sure Shaggy and Scooby were okay, which they were good, thank goodness. Daphne was being scratched to death by Simone as Daphne was trying to keep the beast off of her. Simone was attacking Daphne like a hunter from Left 4 Dead would do. Get it off of me! Get it off of me! Daphne screamed as Fred shoved Lena out of his way and kicked the cat creature off of Daphne. Jacques and Lena along with Simone were walking towards Fred, Velma, and Bao. When they started to smoke and decay, the curse was broken. They soon decayed into bones, as the zombies did the same. What's happening? Shaggy asked. Their spirits are decaying, Shaggy, Velma explained. They could finally rest in peace. With that being said, all the zombies and cat creatures were gone. The gang then soon turned around to see the beaten up Daphne. She had scratches and bruises on her. I saw a big gash was shown on Daphne's legs, as her clothes was stained with blood. Hang in there, Daphne, Fred said, as he held his best friend. We can get help. We can. Fred? Daphne asked weakly. Yes? Fred asked as Daphne had his eyes started to water. You're my best. Daphne coughed as she looked at Fred while he held one of her hands. Best friend I ever had, Daphne said. No, Daphne, don't do this. I can't lose you now, Fred began to sob. Fred, take care of the gang, Daphne replied. Love you more than anything, Daphne said as she closed her eyes. Fred started to cry along with Velma, Shaggy, Scooby, and Bo. They were all crying to their loss of their friend. I started to cry a little myself. I think this movie wanted to kill off Daphne, but luckily they didn't even show this part in the original version of the film. Then the last scene transitions to Fred looking at the sunset. I'm sorry, Fred, Velma said, as she tried to comfort her friend. Fred then looked at the sunset. Oh, Daphne, Fred said sadly. Fred! A voice called out. Bao appeared, then looked behind and looked at Fred. Look who's back! Bao then stepped out of the side as Fred looked to see Daphne, who walked up towards Fred. She did have a bandage around her left leg where the huge gash was, and she had a lot of scratches. Her left eye was able to be opened again, but even then, she had a black eye. What matters is that she's alive. Daphne! Fred went up to Daphne as the two hugged each other when they got close enough. I thought I'd never see you again. Bao knew I was alive, Daphne said. He treated my wounds. Thank you, Fred said to Bo, for saving my girlfriend. Fred and Daphne both looked at the sunset and the two finally kissed. The credits then rolled and the phone screen went back to the iTunes store. After watching that 1997 version of Scooby on Zombie Island, I was surprised I knew that the 1998 version of the movie was dark, but didn't expect this one to be more darker. Questions were made inside my head. I'm sure that this version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island wasn't released until 1998 due to graphic content and other things. I wasn't too disturbed by it, surprisingly. I decided that I would show it to my best friend who used to love this movie. I went to bed that night and woke up to show my best friend the 1997 version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. She was surprised by it as I was. I tried to find out about why Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island from 1997 was 10 times darker than the original version of the movie. I did have some theories and thought on the movie. One of them was that the werecats could be real creatures. That, I have no idea. Then I thought of a theory on why the movie was 10 times more darker than the original version of the movie. Then I know that did the creators wanted to kill Daphne off of the movie? So maybe that's why Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island didn't come out a year before for that reason. I still don't know why the movie wasn't released in 1997, but all I could say is in my imagination myself. Now that it's 2019, I still have the movie on my laptop on the Movies app of my iPhone 7. Though if you want to see this version of the movie, you'll have to come to Tallahassee, Florida, as I don't want to risk posting this on YouTube due to copyright reasons, and to not scare any fans or young children of the movie. But I do watch this version of the movie from time to time, but none as much as I did back in 2017. I never got any nightmares from this version of the movie, and I still remember this movie off by memory.